This lesson is looking at the von Neumann architecture. You need to be able to answer what the structure of the von Neumann architecture is and the function of the different components that make up the von Neumann architecture. To start with, you have a recall task. Match the different statements to the keywords. There may be more than one answer for each of the keywords. Here are the keywords and the answers. Please go back and mark your work, pause the video and check that you've got them all correct. Now you need the following slide ready as we go through the next couple of slides. Now we're looking at before John von Neumann. In the early days, in the old-fashioned days, computer systems, we had to set the position of switches and plugs to input data. And the output was produced by these switches and usually ticker tape going into them. Now, you might have seen The Imitation Game, and you might have heard of a chap called Alan Turing. Now, they developed a machine called Colossus in the Second World War. Now, this machine decoded the German Enigma code. You had to reset all the different switches to try and figure out what the code was. There are two videos here that you can watch to give you a little bit more information. Now, the traditional computers you can think of as like calculators. They had fixed programs. They had one purpose, so it can only do one thing. You can't make a PowerPoint on a calculator, and that purpose can't be changed. There is no memory. When you finish doing your calculation and you start the next one, it's not going to remember what you did beforehand. Now, there's no memory, which means you can't go back to old programs. But one of the other main disadvantages is that it's quite inefficient and time-consuming to keep moving all these switches around. Imagine pulling a switch out and putting it somewhere else to give a different output. So you have to rewire a computer every single time you want to do a calculation. This wasn't a good way of doing it. Now, this is background information only. You don't need to know this. However, we are really lucky in Manchester to have the baby computer. One of the first computers in the world to actually have a stored program was made at Manchester University, and you can now see it at the Museum of Science and Industry. This picture here, you can see these two men designing the computer, and this was a massive step forward using John von Neumann's theory that you could store a computer program. Remember, this is just for information, this slide only. You can see on the right, this is the baby computer, and it is the first computer to use RAM, random access memory, and memory. Remember, you can visit this at the Museum of Science and Industry, and it's well worth a visit. We are really lucky to have such a rich computer science history nearby. So John von Neumann's concept is that you should have memory. So you could store data as well as programs, so you don't have to keep reprogramming them. This means you'd use memory such as RAM, random access memory. So you should be thinking about the right hand side of that box now. The von Neumann or Neumann concept is a computer that has a control unit, an ALU, arithmetic logic unit, memory such as RAM. It has inputs and outputs and 4 registers. Remember, we talked about the registers. But the key thing about a von Neumann computer is that it can store a program. And this is what modern day computers are actually built on.